Welcome to 1,000,001 Things.
Girls, get it together. You have a show to do.
Because it's cool to know stuff. Let's get started. Welcome to our show, 1,000,001 Things, because it is cool to know stuff. We are sponsored by Quirky Minds Media, your full-service media production company. Go out there and check out what they can do for you at quirkymindsmedia.com. My name is Temple Kinyon, and we have a very special guest today, but let me introduce my co-host, Cynthia DeBoer, first. Cynthia, how are you?
I am good, and yes, you are right. We have this very special woman by the name of Sherry West with us today, and she is a dynamite go-getter. This woman is all about branding. She's a specialist in that area. She's an author. She's a podcaster, and we're going to let her tell us a little bit about her, and then we'll get into her work.
Good morning, Temple. Good morning, Cynthia.
Good morning.
Hello.
Thank you for having me on your show today.
No,
Thanks
you're
for
very
being
welcome.
here.
I guess a little bit about me.
Yep.
Yeah, where'd you grow up? That kind of thing.
Oh, grew up in Philadelphia and then the suburbs of Philadelphia. I've been in California for the last 12 years.
Cool.
So my career began in fashion design. So
Wow.
that's where most of my branding kind of career has come from, starting with designing women's sportswear for most of my career. And I still am very much deeply involved in apparel. And through my career, there have been changes, whether the economy's changed or, locations have changed. I've done stints in education, the fashion design chairperson and retail management. And so through your career, as you evolve, you take on certain roles, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I got my degree in fashion design, did I have any clue that I would wind up working with branding? No. It's just kind of one of those things. And getting my master's degree, understanding the business side of businesses. So over the course of my career, I've been working with a lot of companies, a lot of brands, and a lot of clients. And what we're talking about today is how businesses become brands. Everybody talks these days about being a brand, but there's a process to becoming a brand. And so that's what what we're going to talk about today, and seeing those nuances that people and companies just don't overnight become a brand.
Right. I remember I was working at the University of Idaho. I was at the alumni office, I think. So it would have been, I'm not even going to say a date. But it was when this big catchphrase, it caught on fire, branding. Mm-hmm. And we all knew it was out there. We all knew it was a thing. It wasn't anything really new. Mm-hmm. But it was all of a sudden this big thing. And every marketing company in America, you had to brand yourself. And there were brands that you didn't want that were maybe based off of public perception. Mm-hmm. And we found that out. How did people, either alumni or donors or just walk of life people, how do you perceive us? Mm-hmm. And we took that information, and some of it was positive and some of it wasn't necessarily bad, but it wasn't necessarily how we wanted to be seen. Mm-hmm. And that's when this big branding thing, that when I learned about how important it is to brand yourself. Mm-hmm. So how would you explain to someone who doesn't know about this kind of thing, how important is a brand and why is it important?
Well, brands are really important, but it shouldn't be your purpose for your business, because you have to evolve into being a brand. Probably almost 10 years ago, like the word branding starts resurfacing, but the word branding has been out for a long time. It's just that what becomes, like you said, that catchphrase.
Yeah.
And so branding comes from branding cattle.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
my
where
cow.
Exactly.
Don't steal my cow.
Right. So that livestock, would go into other neighboring cattle herders' lots or whatever. Yeah. And so in order to identify my cattle versus your cattle,
right.
You brand the butt.
Yeah.
The butt of the cattle.
Your sign.
Right. And that's a logo, right?
Yeah.
But a logo doesn't make a brand in terms of what we're talking about, because, you have to be, this is why my podcast is called Business to Brand, because you just don't wake up one day and become a brand. You have to do the process of building your business so that, and the marketing, to become a brand. And part of that is a logo, but a logo in and of itself is not a brand. It may be how you brand your company, but branding is really searing your image and your brand story and your loyalty, your following, all of that in the mind of the consumer.
Right.
So if the consumer recognizes your brand, such as brands like Coca-Cola, like almost the whole world, about 90% of the world has seen Coca-Cola's logo in some shape or form.
McDonald's.
Yeah, McDonald's, right.
Yeah.
So
Nike.
right. And when you look at all of those iconic brands that have been around, like Tide, we say Pepsi and all those different ones, they have been around. They've stood the test of time.
Right.
And time makes the brand, because now you can start identifying with that brand. Like, so Coca-Cola, you think refreshing. They're very united. Like, even back in the 70s, they were teaching the world to sing, you know, in perfect harmony, right? Mm-hmm. And that can stand the test of time. And some slogans and campaigns help to sear the brand in your mind. Like Geico, like you know, they have funny commercials. Sometimes it doesn't even have anything to do with insurance. Right? But you look forward to some of their commercials, and that's part of their branding. And I think what they've done successfully is they've taken that edge and angst out of purchasing insurance. Like, it's so funny. The commercials have nothing to do with insurance, but then they'll throw in that Geico thing. Right. Remember they had this one campaign years ago about the cave people.
The caveman.
It almost became a TV series. It was.
Oh, it did.
Yeah,
but it didn't last.
I know. I even dressed my kids one year and made caveman costumes because we just love those commercials.
It was great.
But those are good campaigns. And those things, when you take the time to put messages out about your company, then people are starting to look forward to your brand, or they follow your brand because they're invested in it. They like it.
So branding is definitely multi-layered. Obviously, it takes some time, and it's an emotional tie, don't you think?
It is. And that's why my podcast is called Business to Brand, because I get into the business planning. So what makes you different if you're in the same market? Say if you're going to develop a beverage and compete against Coca-Cola or something like that, how are you going to get next to Coca-Cola or take some of the market share from Coca-Cola? You have to study not only what they did, but you have to discover, how are you going to reach that customer? What are you willing to do to try and capture some of that market share? And what's going to set you apart? You know, how's your campaign different? How's your logo different? There's so many different products out here right now that there's a sea of sameness. So in that sea of sameness, you have to differentiate yourself. And that's part of the planning. So not just the cost of doing business, finding your target market. You know, there's so many different things, just understanding your market in general. And you really do need to follow the market. If you're going to become a brand, how are you going to get there? You're going to use social media. You're going to use influencers. Are you going to use traditional marketing, newspapers, magazines, radio, television? Social media is huge, you know. So then now you start looking at marketing dollars. And the more you get out there, the more people have eyeballs on your brand, then you can start becoming a brand when people really know you. You can be a brand in your own mind and only have like 10 followers or 10
That's
people.
me. Yeah. The Temple brand. Hi, 10 listeners. Thank you for being here. No, I'm kidding. But it seems very overwhelming. I was lucky enough to have a little bit of background with my schooling in communications, advertising, marketing, that kind of thing. And then, of course, through jobs, obviously, I just said. But it's like this onion, and there's all these layers. And so have you ever worked with companies where people just look at you overwhelmed, deer in the headlights, going, I don't understand how we're going to do all this?
All the time, yeah. Because a lot of people I deal with, especially in the apparel industry, they may have money to go start an apparel line. They love fashion, but they don't want to spend $100,000 to go get a 4-year degree. And even if they did get a 4-year degree, are they going to go get a job within the industry? So this process, the knowledge that I will be kind of disseminating through the podcast, is years of these milestones, education, working, even getting more education. You know, these and success stories also help. The success stories tell you wow, you did it right.
Yeah.
Sometimes even if you didn't know what you were doing, but having the resources behind you help a lot. And so what I do with clients is when they come to me and engage with me, I see where they are in their process. If they're very startup, then we start from scratch. But I also fast track them, like almost through a 4-year program. I educate them in their process. It's not just, hey, pay me a fee and I'll write your business plan. No, it's like, I'm going to teach you this process at the same time. Also, we're doing research so they can see where you fit in your market. And then also, how much capital do you need to really move this brand forward? Like, what's your real vision? And by the way, it's going to take time. So, where do you want to be in 1 year, 2 year, 3 year? We can do a 5-year plan, 7-year plan, financials and all that. But you need to see that every decision that you make in building your business before you even become a brand, there's a financial responsibility that goes along with that. Everything has a cost associated with it. So when I work with them, not only am I fast tracking them, I'm taking out all of that. I've worked with clients where sometimes they'll have me stay on as like the CEO or president, because now that they understand what's expected of them, and do you really want to do this? Let me show you what you're really getting ready to get into, if this is what you really, really want to do. And educate them at the same time. I kind of create little Bibles for them, and like, this is your roadmap. If you're going out there to raise capital, you need this business plan to prove to someone who's going to invest in you that you really understand your market, that you really understand who your competitors are, that you really have the team behind you to get you to the next level.
So you're a safety net in the sense that you educate them, you enlighten them, you tell them that there's not just a time investment, but also an actual capital investment to get to this brand status. Have you ever had anybody go, that's not going to be what we want to do?
Well, I start with their vision first. It's not my vision. It's like, how do I help you get to where you want to be? I've had sort of potential clients go, oh, that's a little bit more than I can afford. And that's another reason for the podcast. So then that way I'm able to give information on the steps that you can take to get, even if it's bite-sized little steps. But most of the time, people are very excited that they can actually have a one-stop shop, that we can help them build their product, that we can help them market, that we can set up their e-commerce site, that we can do a lot of things that independent, you're going to trial and error, spend a lot of money, and may not get to where you want to be. So to trust, experience, professional to help you get there. And it doesn't matter if it's apparel. It could be any product. In some cases, like one of my newer clients, it's a mobile app. It's still the same process. You're still building a product, or you're trying to sell a product through to a target customer. So
I think that's really important, because the other side of it, too, is like you mentioned. I've heard this said so many times, and it's the biggest BS out there that somebody is an overnight success. Nobody really is an overnight success. It all takes so much time and energy. You had mentioned Coca-Cola, and I know that because sugar was such a big thing, and they started reinventing the product and adding stevia, I think, is in some of their product, because they had to change. They had to keep up with the times. And I think that's the other thing for us that really makes a brand stick around, because you mentioned logos, but I've seen in the past that a lot of companies, the logos have changed a bit through the years because they're trying to keep up. It's like with Temple and I, we're both authors, and we've seen books that were printed way back when, but the cover has changed like 4 times just to appeal to today, quote unquote, today's audience. Now, you've talked a lot about your podcast, but you have 4 books. I love the title that you did. It is just adorable. This Little Piggy Went to Market. And that's great, because now you have book 1 about business modeling. You've got brand your story, and then you've got product development, and then finally go-to-market strategy. And I think that that's also great because, as you mentioned, you've gone to school and you have a lot of this background, plus years of experience out there. Anybody that is going to go to someone, they want to know, what have you done? And I think that with your background, you definitely give people the right feeling about what's going on. And again, like you just mentioned, it's not your vision, it's their vision. And I think that that's really important, because a lot of people, I mean, there's people out there that they want to be the biggest competitor against Coca-Cola, and somebody else says, hey, I just want to sell it to my local grocery store.
Exactly.
That kind of thing. So having to be able to look at somebody's plan of what they want and go with it. And then we always had a saying around my house, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, because that's really it.
It's true.
If you don't have anything concrete. And I think that part is really important. So getting to these books, can you tell us a little bit about what to expect from those, or when they're going to be out, or that kind of thing?
This Little Piggy Went to Market, Volume 1, Business Modeling, is about business planning. And so like the little quote that you just said, businesses don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. So if you at least sit down and start writing it out, take those steps, the hard steps of creating a mission statement, creating a vision, like what is your business, then chances are, again, looking at what would make you fail. Like nobody thought that a pandemic was coming. And look how many businesses got wiped out in just like exactly a year ago.
Yeah.
Filing Chapter 11. If you were struggling before, boom, and you weren't ready for the pandemic, or you weren't totally digital, chances are you got wiped out. A lot of brick and mortar retailers got wiped out. So now going forward, we're going to be making everything pandemic proof.
Business plan is going to have a pandemic clause.
Exactly. Or just be ready for that in advance. Because if you were on a digital platform already prior to the pandemic, your chances of survival were much better.
Yeah.
But brick and mortars, no one would have anticipated the government shutting everything down. It's not like they shut down because they weren't doing well. They shut down because everything stopped.
Yeah.
And that's the sad part. But that's why they got some bailouts and things like that. But still, some may not ever recover.
Right. So diversity is definitely part of it.
Right. So my books, what I've done, and they're all in the process.
Okay.
So I took that little nursery rhyme. This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy had roast beef. This little piggy had none. Or, went wee all the way home.
Yeah.
And so about 2 years ago, there was a big controversy over this nursery rhyme about pigs going to the market and getting slaughtered. And now I took it a different way, because if you're ready, if you're ready for business, then you might have some roast beef. You might come home and go, I did pretty good at market. I took my product to market and I did pretty good. If you didn't plan well, you went back home. Go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
But if you do really well, you plan really well, and everything aligns, you might go wee, not all the way home, but all the way to the bank.
That's right.
So I took this this little piggy went to market to put a little spin on it to say, even young kids, you see this during the pandemic too. You see more and more young kids coming up with businesses because they have social media, because that's their space.
Yeah.
Oh,
they
yeah.
can get out
definitely.
there and boom, they got social media. Something goes viral, boom, 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 and they got a lot of attention on them. But there's also too that thing of businesses that grow too fast, because if you didn't plan for that growth, then you might not be able to meet the demand of your own business, and you might shutter your doors because you couldn't meet the demand.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or you don't know how to go get the financing to meet those orders, right?
Yeah.
So that's where planning also comes in. So I use this title. So no matter if you're a kid just doing your lemonade stand, up to the next big mobile app, then these principles still apply to you. Doesn't matter what you're doing, that you still need to plan. You still need to do your research. You still need to study your market, understand who your target customer is. How can you constantly acquire more customers? Because that's what business is about. It's about being financially set and having a business. And to create a brand, you need to get more and more people, more and more eyeballs on your brand, more loyal customers. And that's really how you become a brand, when people can talk about you or talk about your brand or your company without you being there, and they know exactly who you're talking about, or you've heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're hoping that they're talking about you in a good way. That's for darn sure. But, again, like you said, is getting prepared for that growth, because I know of a company that was over the moon because they got this great contract with Costco. They could not keep up production. They just couldn't. So there went the business, and they had to really scale back. They didn't completely lose everything, but they definitely lost some of the respect and the integrity that they would have had being able to go forward with this. And then another person that I know, she wanted to be this big fashion designer, and she got some of her clothes in. And one of the department stores said, well, I need this many of this size, this size, this size, and I need it in all 50 stores by such and such time. Well, there was no way that could happen. So it's kind of like, yeah, you want to get really primed up and ready to go, but you do need to know the what ifs. I mean, we all want to be the star or whatever in our own mind if nobody else is, but at the same time, we've got to be prepared. And businesses fail, exactly like you said. And I know of 2, in fact, cases of the same thing. And it's knowing, too, I think, when enough is enough.
Right. And in that case of the person, in the apparel business or any other business, what I would have done consulting with them, if they said, oh my God, we got these big orders. Well, there's certain things, if you know your industry, you would know that if you have an order from, say, Nordstrom or whomever, that's money in the bank. You could take that purchase order to the bank, or you could take it to a factor and they would go, oh, Nordstrom's, boom, I will back that order. You don't even have to worry. But the other problem is that in planning, they should also know where they're getting their manufacture. You never put all your eggs in one basket. You have to, this is what we call global sourcing. So I know sourcing all over the world. I have factory contacts all over the world. So like one of my current clients, he came to me with a project. And so I'm like, oh, yeah, I can get that made. He goes, yeah, but I really only want to manufacture in India. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But there are limitations with India, or, maybe China has a bad name, but I have good contacts in China. But it's your vision, not my vision. So I will do my best to work with my India clients, contacts and resources. I got like 2 or 3 and say, okay, here's my clients' specs for their garments. Can you come back to me with a good price?
Yeah.
And we're also developing some so that you can see what's the difference between what you've done so far and what we will do as a team to get your new product and new ideas through. Like, so one client is nice that he's doing like everything with us, because he was doing it piecemeal and it was taking him months, whereas boom, I can fast track you in like 3 to 4 months and you're up and running. Back to your other person who had problems, again, not planning and not knowing, not being ready for that growth. Nordstrom's or Neiman's or wherever that order was coming from, they're assuming because you're selling to us already that you can supply, you can meet our demand. And they don't know that they had a very good problem. Everybody actually wants that problem where they get an order from Nordstrom's that is so big that is your business, or say Costco, because Costco, you can supply Costco with 2 items, 2 styles, and their initial order might be 10,000 pieces.
Right.
Whereas a factory only needs like 250 or 300 piece order to get your order going. So not knowing these things about, especially the apparel industry and sizing and all that sort of thing, if you don't know those, then you're licking your wounds and you're out of business because you just didn't know. And that's what planning is all about. So if you don't plan, you don't get to be a brand.
Right.
Yeah,
you don't
exactly.
get down the road far
So
enough.
the reward of planning is that you get to be a brand.
Yeah, and people will know who you are. And it's timeless, hopefully.
Right. And what's amazing about even like the big box, the Costco's and the Sam's of the world, is that somebody can know your brand with like 2 items on a table because it's stacked high and it's across all of their doors. Each door is considered a door. Just that one order from them could make your entire year or 2 years just on 2 items, whereas you're trying to get a whole collection through to specialty stores, department stores. But those big boxes, 1 order. Wow. That's all it takes, And let me tell you, investors will see that you have a purchase order, letter of intent, those type of things. Those things are golden. Those things are literally like almost a blank check.
Yeah.
But you got to have your resources together to be able to get that production done and deliver, like you said, to Nordstrom's. Right. It's like if you don't deliver to them on time and they've started advertising your product and you're late, then you're going to get dinged. They're going to fine you.
So that makes me wonder, and you can answer this, I'm sure. Let's say you are that business that you didn't plan. You had that great problem and got the order, but you couldn't follow through on it. Can you walk in and help that company or business rebrand?
Yes.
Or turn around and make a change so that they can have those big orders again, but not have that bad reputation of not being able to follow through.
That's called turnaround or damage control.
Yeah. Right.
And they'd have to reach out within a good amount of time and say, we can go and see if those orders are still good. Is this order still good? Let's reach out to your buyer. Because I could reach out to my contacts and say, okay, we could get that order made in a month, 30 days or something like that. What's a turnaround time? You can replace the production in a facility that has the capacity to turn out an order like that. Because most of these factories overseas, they're doing maybe hundreds of thousands. So they can do the capacity, and then you can renegotiate that contract to a point where it's like, here's how you can get it done. Understanding shipping, especially if it's coming from overseas. You have to understand how long things take over the water. You don't want to fly things in because it's going to cost you a lot. Again, understanding the business of how are you going to get your product from point A to point B and the time frame. So in the terms of, like, say, fashion, there are seasons. So a buyer may be buying something for a specific season. So your window is shorter. Nowadays, it's buy now, wear now. So it doesn't matter. It's like they're trying to close some of these lead times on development, but you still have to consider the climates of the areas where you're shipping to. So you want, like right now, you'll start seeing on the floor, a lot of spring, summer stuff is already starting to arrive on the floors and on e-commerce sites. So you're not going to see any winter product, sweaters and things like that. Or at least you won't see sweaters in wool. You'll see sweaters in cotton. So again, this is the reason why you plan, because if you don't understand your industry and what is expected during your industry, or when specific promotions are going on, like when certain holidays hit, like, okay, so a buyer may buy something for 4th of July. And if we're talking about, say, Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola might change their entire can just for the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So they have to be ready. They're already thinking, we want this in the stores. So they're already doing their product development during a certain period of time in the calendar. And then they know they have to ship it to get to the warehouses, and then warehouses have to then distribute it to retailers.
Yeah,
so
there's a lot of
much going on. Yeah.
So this is a tremendous amount of information, and I always learn things when I listen to you. So I'm glad we get to chat off the mic.
Yes.
But I'm sure our listeners are very interested in this if they have a business or want to start a business or want to turn a business around. So your podcast is available soon.
It's we're already starting to record, and I'm very excited because we're now hitting a groove, and hopefully we'll be posting you guys on there as well.
Yeah.
So the website is businesstobrand.co. Yeah.
.co. Okay. Businesstobrand.co.
Okay.
And then
perfect. That is the website.
Okay.
And then in the meantime, while all that is, in production,
we've all been there.
We're all in production right now.
Yeah.
To, reach me as a consultant, you can reach me at rhymeandreasonmarketing.com. And so that's, rhyme and reason, but marketing is abbreviated MKTG. So it's like hard to kind of spell it all out.
Oh, okay.
Domain names are hard to get. So.
Or you can reach me at yours truly, Sherry, at yahoo.com.
And Sherry is SHERRY, not
West.
IE.
Yeah, Sherry West.
Sherry
with
West.
a Y.
Yes.
Exactly.
Sherry with a Y.
Well, we'll be sure and let our listeners know that have joined us today. They obviously just heard this, but we'll go ahead and chat with them on our social media platforms soon. We look forward to maybe having you on again so we can dive into some of those other concepts or see how your podcast is going and just keep you part of the family.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Time just rolls right on by.
It does.
It really does.
I know.
I would really like to dive into the emotional side of all of that too, because I know that's something that's a big proponent in all of this. It's hard. You have to keep your passion alive to keep going forward, but you also have to kind of squash your ego here and there where things might not be going exactly the way that you want them to go. So I think that that's also something that would be really important to get into. So when we have you back, we'll definitely make sure.
Definitely another
show.
Pick
Because
that
people's
up.
dreams are really important to get going and to have the right support around you, because it's very hard to, once you come up with an idea and then you actually take that deep step to just say, okay, I'm going to start a business. There's always naysayers or you're a dreamer or whatever, but you know what? Where would we be? Where would this world be
without the dreamers?
Without the dreamers who took a chance and said, you know what? despite the naysayers, I'm going to go out and do this. And at least you can say, at least I tried.
And
exactly.
At least I
having
tried.
someone like you in their corner is going to end up helping them achieve their dream.
Yeah.
So,
For sure.
yeah, you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly.
Because some people have helped me along the way. I mean,
Sure.
at some point in your life, somebody opens a door, whether it's your first job or your first client, stepping out and doing my own business a couple times and looking at all the steps that you have to take and saying, okay, I even need more education, getting a master's and all that, and, crying through that.
Right, exactly.
But then you're more prepared to help other people. And so I've been on so many different sides of the coin of apparel and product development. And yeah, there's so much information that you can't possibly have gotten it on your own if you're deciding I want to start a business. So here we are. We're not the only companies out there that are there as that one-stop shopping, but I am special in that, like, apparel is my specialty, product development is my specialty, branding is my specialty. But I want to make sure you succeed.
Yeah,
For sure.
Ask for help if you need it.
Yeah.
Right.
We got Sherry here. She can help you.
Right. Exactly. So thanks again.
Thank you.
And I am Cynthia DeBoer with my dreamer partner, Temple Kinyon. And we are 1,000,001things.com. And if you really want to get in touch with us, or if for some reason you didn't get Sherry's information quite right, please email us and we will definitely pass it on to her. And that is 1,000,001thingsshow@gmail.com. And let us know. Maybe you have a really niche business that you want to talk about, and you can let us know about that or other ideas for our show. Because, as Temple and I say, 1,000,001 things, because it's cool to know stuff. Bye for now. Join us next time when we come up with something new.
After all, there's always 1,000,001 things to talk about.
Girls,